Sorry for being late. Had a situation, not a big situation, but somebody contacted me and said they had delivery for me, and turns out they got the address wrong, which is perfectly fine. Those things happen. But I had to be downstairs for a bit trying to sort it out. Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Another Square and Compass live stream. Hope everybody's doing well. Please take a moment, hit like, hit subscribe. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, let me know. Couple of things I want to talk about today. One thing, interestingly enough, in particular, hello, Mr. Dane Mapping. Thank you for being here. Sorry for being a couple minutes late. Yesterday was, and let me pull it up again to get it correct. To get the exact wording correct. Hello, Ben. Let's see. Dun, dun, dun. Give me 1 second. And by the way, thank you again, everybody who helped make my weekend so successful. Like one of your videos, I don't think I have off the top of my head. I need to double check, but I don't believe I have. If I could find it, give me 1 second. Try my luck at what? Nice. Oh, actually, normally I don't gamble. It's been about forever, but I was there anyways. I spent so much time drinking their coffee. I figured I should. So I put in $5 and I ended up winning. But that's not to encourage anybody to gamble, especially if you have a problem with it. I just got lucky. As soon as I won, I immediately stopped, and I don't think I'll ever gamble again. I'm already ahead with the free coffee, and I'm already ahead with the with that one victory. So let's just leave it there. So yesterday, August 23rd, was Slavery Remembrance Day, designated by United Nations. It commemorates the 1791 uprising in Haiti, well then Saint Domingue, that accelerated the end of the transatlantic slave trade. I figured I want to talk about that because people don't realize that Freemasons have actually been involved in the abolition of slavery in a variety of ways. Perhaps most famously, and forgive me for pronouncing his name incorrectly, Freemason known as Victor Schoelcher. I believe I pronounced that correctly. Schoelcher. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about him. That's not to say every Freemason was engaged in the abolition of the slave trade. Famously, George Washington owned slaves. Many Freemasons owned slaves, but many were also opposed to it. Not just the abolition of the slave trade, but civil rights more in general. So I want to talk about that. I'm doing well, Dad. How are you? I should try my luck at Busking Septimus. Thank you for being here. Ugh, Albert Pike. Once again, bringing up Albert Pike. I find him a pain in the butt to talk about at this point. He is not that important to Freemasonry. He's just one dude who gave his opinions and thoughts on Freemasonry. So we need to calm down with this weird obsession with him that everybody seems to have. But please hit like, please hit subscribe. I'm getting closer and closer to 5,000 subs. So any help to get me there would be much obliged. Yes, I am monetized, but I'm not monetized on my personal channel, youtube.com/Cameron Adamson. I'd like to be. So my plan is to try to grow that channel every day this week from 8:30. Actually, let me double check the times. I'm going to be streaming every day live streaming every day this week. I want to see how if I can grow this channel. And especially because we have the changes coming in on February 1st, right? So I think it's really important to try to grow my channel that way as well. Well, it's true, slavery is still alive. I don't know if I'd say well, at least relatively speaking, right? But there is still a slave trade, of course, and it's a shame. And the idea that we pretend like it's completely finished, sorry, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., starting today. The idea that we pretend like, oh, it's all over or it's all done, that's just not the case. We know it still exists, but I do think it's much reduced compared to what it has been historically. And Freemasonry, amongst other things, or Freemasons, anyways, are in part responsible for that reduction. So, hello, Sumandi. Thank you for being here. No, Masons will never have their own currency, at least not officially. I mean, there was some discussions around creating a Masonic crypto coin. I've actually had those discussions in the past, or Masonic NFTs. So we're going to see how they go. I mean, I have no idea what the numbers were. Obviously, slavery has existed throughout the world, not just in America. Um, but within America, I don't know if anywhere it is a moral wrong, as well as economically dumb. It's stupid for a lot of reasons, but beyond that, it's just morally wrong. Luckily, we have many examples of Freemasons fighting for the abolition of slavery. And we're going to talk about one such Mason soon. I mean, you can define it as small or big. I'm not a big fan of, when it comes to moral wrongs, making those judgments, right? I mean, if a murderer kills one person versus a murderer kills 50 people, I think the one and the 50, I mean, neither is good, put it that way. And I don't think we should get into comparisons in that sense, because I don't think it's helpful. Andy, what is the BS group? Freemasons, Freemasonry? None. I love my Canadian cities. I don't know yet because I'm still waiting to get the numbers of the ad revenues, but a fair number. Once I know for sure, I will let everybody know. But what I may do is wait and donate it on October 6th during the Masonic Medical Research Institute telethon, which could be really fun to do, actually. That's taking place October 6th. I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be trying to take part in it. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. We'll see. Might be a fun announcement. I wouldn't destroy any Canadian city. I love them all. Sorry, you're not going to get me to answer that question, Mr. Dane. You did some more aura farming? Well, that's very cool. I hope that you had a good time aura farming. And I hope that you will help me out by sending some of that aura my way and hitting like and subscribe. Good morning, Idiwan. Enlightenment isn't material, though. I don't know what you mean by that. The Enlightenment as in the philosophy? Well, that's a good answer, Ben. The one with the least people is probably the best answer you can make. That's like the trolley problem. We are just hanging out, waiting to see who joins. As always, please hit like, please hit subscribe. Lydia, I mean, I'm not opposed to that, but keep in mind there's no discussion of religion or politics in Lodge. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. I would very, very much appreciate it. I agree. Being rich and having shiny things is not enlightenment. It's not the most important thing, nor should people consider it as such. At the end of the day, you can't take it with you. Even if you could control, at the end of the day, no matter how much, even if we were to control the entire world, we would control what amounts to the tiniest speck in the universe, a completely negligible, irrelevant amount of space in what amounts to perhaps an infinite or at least very big universe. The point is, we shouldn't worry about trying to control the world or be rich or famous. We should worry about just trying to help the people around us and leave the worries about infinity and control and power to other people. Hello, Stephanie. No, take. I think you're thinking of the wrong thing. That's not what Freemasonry is all about. There are gay Freemasons and straight Freemasons, but who cares, right? What matters is, are you a good person on the inside? It's the internal qualifications. Your sexual orientation is not relevant. Because I'm very handsome, bread man. Oh, Oliver with the joke from that skit that I saw. I'm a very sassy potato. Please hit like and subscribe. Ben, you're going to get used to it, believe me. If you want to be on YouTube, you got to get used to people making fun of you. Um, oh, by the way, there's a new Backrooms video out, in case anybody likes that, which I do. We're going to keep hanging out, wait to see who joins. As you guys know, the first 60 minutes, I don't talk about anything specific. I just wait to see who joins. Then I switch into specific topics. In this case, Freemasonry and the abolition of slavery, and one French Freemason in particular, who is very responsible for the abolition of the Atlantic slave trade. Tyler, you'd have to ask each one, because there is no Masonic rule or teaching about Israel, nor should there be. Because that's a political question. Every Freemason is allowed to make up his own mind as it relates to Israel, or any country for that matter. I can say I'm a member of a lodge in Israel, Lodge Holy Line number 50, and I'm grateful for that. But yeah, I'm very happy. Everyone will make their own decision. I think I can say for myself, I have a lot of problems with the government of Israel. I think they're pretty terrible, but not the people of any country, including Israel. So, Sir Otto, Freemason South African history. I know a little bit about Masonic history in South Africa, because I assume you mean the country and not just, the southern part of the African continent. Because I recently visited and did a little bit of research. Obviously, South Africa is a port town, which means Freemasonry made it there through ships and through the sea, as it did in many places: Boston, Halifax, Hong Kong, Macau. And actually, though, Freemasonry arrived in South Africa through a Dutch sailor and a Dutch captain who was a Freemason, whose name I cannot remember. But it was originally Dutch in origin. There's also a lot of French influence. Their Masonic lodge building in South Africa is absolutely stunning. I got the chance to take a tour, and I loved it. Oh, it's fine, Ben. Calling me hippo's not bad. Well, I don't know what you mean by when you say, why do I support the state of Israel? I mean, I'm a two-stater, so I believe the best solution, the only one I can think of that could work, or the one I think of that could work, would be a Palestinian state and Israeli state. When you say support it, I mean, I support it because it exists in the same way, Canada, which in my opinion is the greatest country in the world. I've said that before, I'll say it again. Canada is the greatest country in the world. I can also accept the fact that Canada committed a lot of pretty atrocious crimes against our First Nations and Indigenous peoples, and continues to do so. I mean, there's a lot of issues, especially on reserves in Northern Ontario. I think some of them are still under, like, they don't have safe drinking water. They still have to boil their water before drinking it. And two things can be true, right? I can both think Canada is the greatest country in the world, and it is, and want Canada to exist for the next however long the earth exists. And I can also accept that Canada has been responsible and continues to be responsible for a lot of bad things toward our Indigenous population. I feel the same way about Israel. I can admit that Israel is responsible for a lot of, pretty horrendous things, but also Israel exists. The people there are Israeli. They consider themselves part of a country, and I don't think we are served in any society if we start to just remove countries from maps or change, anything like that. It just is what it is, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of people in Israel actually who have been on the front lines of trying to fight for and argue for the rights of others, including Palestinians, to their credit. Whoa, Matt, you're going to get yourself in timeout. You're not telling anybody to. Um, everybody's gonna calm down. So Matt, you're getting yourself in a timeout because you need to calm down. No fighting with other people on the chat. I hate that. Um, Hello, Liwan. It's got a big forehead. I open my own doors, friendly. Hello, Jazzy, Deborah. Welcome. I've actually written Deborah. And by the way, Deborah, I think you're new to this stream. Please hit the like button and the subscribe button. I've written actually on Medium a few times about the ways that we in Freemasonry can work towards supporting our Indigenous citizens, Indigenous brothers. Now, Freemasonry already has, I think, to its credit, a really good history of working with Indigenous peoples. It was actually one of the few civic groups historically that would allow Indigenous and First Nations people to into their groups. And then you look at Oklahoma Indian degree team, but in Canada, Brant, Tecumseh. But I wrote a story about where is it? I'm trying to find it on Medium. How we in Freemasonry can try to implement some of the calls to actions in the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women's Report. How we can recognize, Indigenous Peoples Days, things like that. So I just got to find it now. Well, then thank you, Deborah. I always forget who's here and who's not, so thank you for being here. Did you read any of my stories because about Freemasons and Indigenous groups? Because I did write a couple of them. Well, but you got to be careful with that, high watt, because there's been many times throughout history where the people of a country have supported actions of the government that, I would consider pretty terrible. Like, I'm sure there was a time when segregation in the States polled very, very well, right? You always have to a certain extent, believe in the ideal more than the reality. Otherwise, nothing is ever successful. And that goes for Freemasonry as well, right? Like when, looking back to American history, when Jefferson wrote, we hold these truths to be self-evident, all men are created equal. He wrote that while owning slaves. Does that mean that the ideal of that statement, and when most Americans, not all, but most Americans would have been supporters of the owning of slaves, or at least would not have considered it, something worth their time to consider pushing against, does that mean that the Constitution doesn't matter or that those words are irrelevant? It still matters, and it still is something to fight for, and it's something important. I think the ideal of Israel, based on my understanding of the history of it, as a safe place for Jewish people who had been victims of, going back to Egypt, had been victims of genocides and slavery and all the rest of it. I think there's a valuable ideal in that, and one that is worth celebrating, even if the actions don't measure up. Because people change. And, people can change, politics change, views change. Look at America, right? Again, how much America changed in terms of its views of race and treatment of black people. I think that's worth celebrating. And Freemasonry is no different. The ideals of Freemasonry, I think, are good, are wonderful. It's not always implemented correctly or properly. But that doesn't mean you don't celebrate the ideals nonetheless. Highwood, I don't know if Kant didn't consider, I suspect there's a lot of racism at the time. But yeah, I think we need to always focus and remember that believing in the ideal is actually pretty important, because when we get to the point where we no longer accept or believe in the ideals, All it does is give an opportunity for, shall we say, strong men to come along and decide to tear the whole thing down. But what they replace it with is very rarely a good thing. The legal definition of human. I don't know what that means, Ben. Hello, Dual. Welcome. I got a big nose. Yes. Um, Daniel, I mean, I'm not really sure what you're like. I know many Muslim Freemasons, Christian Freemasons, Jewish Freemasons. My whole point is you take each person as they come. I don't care what religion you are, what religion you profess to be. That will not stop you from being a good neighbor, a good friend, a good brother, a good Mason, a good citizen. Right? I try not to judge anybody based on their religious beliefs, which is another Masonic ideal. I don't think, I mean, I know Islamic, I have Islamic friends, Islamic Masonic brothers. As near as I can tell, they are not trying to take over anything. They are just trying to live their lives and be good husbands and fathers and friends and citizens, or trying to become citizens. This idea of, oh, they're trying to take over, I think is very silly. Um, and Ben is correct about that. Using religion as a cover to justify doing bad things, it is a tale as old as time, unfortunately. So, by the way, I did want to mention somebody suggested to me that I go for dinner at Nero's Steakhouse, which is a very expensive, relatively speaking, steakhouse next to me. You can actually see it from my windows. I just realized at the casino. It's like a fancy pants place. If anybody wants me to go to Nero's Steakhouse and do a review or like stream or take pictures of the food, um, let me know. Maybe we'll do like a thing where if I raise enough funds or money through Patreon or through Super Chats, I will go and maybe take a friend with me, and then we'll try out the food together, celebrate a local legend here. Um, a really good place. I've never been there before, so we got hard. So maybe Smokey the Clown. Hi, what? You need to calm down a little bit. You need to relax, Daniel. Um, I mean, unfortunately, like I said, there have been crimes caused by all sorts of people. So, Smokey, let's you and I, at some point, like I said, I'll do a Zoom meeting with you, and we're going to show you how to set up your Discord, how to set up your Patreon, and how to set up, I forget the other thing, how to set up a stream in advance so I can be on your stream. Because Patreon is not that hard to set up, and it can't hurt. I mean, when you start, you're not going to get a ton of money. I'm still not getting a ton of money, but it grows over time like anything else. Yeah, you could tell he was a little bit having a good time, but that's all right. I did, Stephanie. I did. I can assure you. Once I got back home, I slept quite a bit, but that's fine. It was still fun, and it was still a very successful time. So I appreciate everybody being here. I'm glad it was beautiful. I love long drives. I love long drives. I love long trips, period. I think that stuff is incredible. And it's something I always loved. Nothing's wrong with Islam. I like the Islamic faith, the Christian faith, the Jewish faith. Again, for me, whether you are, we've seen it many times. Ultimately, what matters is the person. And what I have found is people, human beings, are able to, if you're a good person, you will use your faith to compel you towards good things and helping people. And if you're a bad person, you will find excuses within your faith to do the bad things. But I know many Muslim Freemasons. I know many Jewish Freemasons, Hindu, Sikh. This channel is about Freemasonry. And one thing within Freemasonry, one of the kind of understandings of it is we want to support our brethren regardless of their faith. or not regardless of, we want to support our brethren and support their faith. Ah, Septimus, cut that out. I know Muslim people. I mean, I'm not an expert on anyone's religion. I don't claim to be. But I've known enough Muslim people to know that, if you're a good person, you will find within Islam lessons and tenets that will help you continue to be a good person. One of my favorite quotes from the Islamic faith, I don't believe it's in the Quran, but it's one I just learned, was love of country is part of faith, which I really like. And it's something I agree with personally. Kafta, I mean, I've asked people questions about Islam in the past. Mostly my interest in Islam relates to Freemasonry and the famous Islamic Freemasons who have existed, such as, let me make sure I got his name correct, because knowing me, I'll get it wrong. Who am I thinking of? I can't find who it was now. Hold on just one second. King Hussein of Jordan, 1935 to 1999. He was a famous Muslim Freemason. There have been others. Freemasonry was very popular in Persia, somewhat for political reasons, which is a whole other can of tuna. And there was a Grand Lodge of Iran in 1969 before the Shah took over and outlawed Freemasonry in 1979. No reviling other people's religions. Hello, Rafio. How's it going? Thank you for being here. Please take a moment, hit like, hit subscribe. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, let me know. Nano, same thing. Esha. I mean, I'm not a big believer in aura farming or aura reading. I don't believe that stuff exists. What I do think exists is the like button and the subscribe button. So please hit both. Consider a super chat and let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry. I don't know who Russell Tovey is, but T09, please hit like and subscribe. I mean, careful, if you guys start knocking too much religion, or this becomes any religious bashing, Christian, Muslim, whatever it is, you're going to find yourself timed out. So just be careful. Plus, it's probably nothing I haven't heard before. Again, because a lot of people view Freemasonry as a religion, one of the things I very often get is people coming on here wanting to have religious debates. But Freemasonry is not a religion. Right? We have members of all different faiths, backgrounds, and beliefs. And Kafta, you need to calm down a bit as well. I know you want to have the debate in the chat, but let's not be doing that. Tyler, I'm not one who, again, believes in aura. Our eyes can't perceive it. Again, I guess I'm not one who believes in magic, so that makes it difficult, right? Like, because I'm not one who believes in magic or aura or the supernatural, I very much question some of these things. I'm not preaching anything, but I am discussing Freemasonry T094 and talking about the ways in which Freemasonry was and is relevant to our communities, as well as sharing stories of Masonic interest. Thank you, Daniel. Drake or Kendrick? I mean, I got to go with Drake because I'm Canadian, and Drake's from Toronto, right? So I kind of have to, by definition, stick with Drake, or by my Canadian, love of Canada, stick with Drake. But I'm not a huge fan of either of them. For me, my favorite type of music is rock and roll. My favorite band of all time is Leonard Skinner. My favorite song of all time is Simple Man. We got Smokey with Kendrick. That, when you say join the council, stop repeating yourself. To what are you referring? Who is what is the council we are joining? I assume you're referring to, like, York, right? Tyler, well then, great minds think alike. Keep in mind, fools seldom differ as well, but great minds think alike. So I'm glad that you and I both love the same song. Um, I like Slipknot fine. What's their most famous song? Um, oh my gosh. What's their I can't think of their favorite song to drive me crazy. Now it's gonna drive me crazy. Snuff. Um, I was not going to go into too many details about it, lest you all think less highly of me. But I was in Mexico at an adult club of sorts, and they're playing that song on the over the speakers, and I really liked it. And I have very fond memories of that club and of that song. So, not all Freemasons are always perfect, put it that way. We hear the keyboard. Yeah, I'm here on the computer. I'm always on my computer while I'm chatting on YouTube. Part of it is because I always want to try to double check stuff if I'm saying it. I don't know everything about Freemasonry by any means, and I always want to double check that I'm getting something right. Plus, there might be details I get wrong. Like I know the first lodge in America was St. John's Lodge in Boston, Massachusetts, but I can't remember the year that the lodge started. So I might look it up quickly to make sure. Um, JJJ, wake up, you're dreaming. Just practice Hinduism. I mean, T109, I'm a big fan of Hinduism because I just learned about it. I mean, I've had Hindu brothers before. One of them used as his volume of the Sacred Law, the Bhagavad Gita, I think it's called. But I was in beautiful Glenview, Illinois, my favorite place in the world, and they were having a special event at the Hindu temple, and I stopped by to learn more about the faith because of my brothers who are Hindu. He talked to me a lot about it. I really enjoyed it. Um, yes, thank you, Ben. And just to know what's happening as well, because if there's some type of crazy announcement, I want to be able to respond. Like if CNN reports all of a sudden, I don't know, 7,000% tariff on Canadian goods or something, I want to be able to respond to that because that's going to affect Freemasonry. Jojo, I mean, socialism, capitalism, communism, isolationism, like pick your terms. Freemasonry is not a political entity. There are some Freemasons who are socialists. There are some Freemasons who are um, capitalists, and anything in between. I think, like everything in life, it's about finding a happy balance. I think you could argue there are some elements of Freemasonry that trend towards socialism, but certainly there's some elements of Freemasonry that trend towards right-wing or capitalist ideologies as well. You tend to put within Freemasonry what you want. At least that's in my experience. So if you're a Freemason and you're a socialist, you will be drawn to the socialist components of it. If you're a Freemason and you're a capitalist, you'll be drawn towards the more capitalism, or at least certainly the right-wing elements of it. I would definitely want to report on that, Full Metal. But I don't think he's nuked any countries yet, and let's just knock on wood. Is he a Mason AS? Like canonically? Because I've never heard of that. Obviously, Homer is a Mason, or a stonecutter, if you will. I mean, Hitler was a crazy person, Ben. I'm more comfortable saying that than ascribing any political or economic beliefs to him. Um, well, I mean, tiny homestead. Now we're getting. I mean, you got to be really careful about that because now you're getting into really complicated territory, right? Like, what is an individual's freedom? What does it mean to be free? Do you ascribe to the Janis Joplin, definition of freedom? Is a man in the desert free if he has no food and water? And then if someone sets up a system to bring him food and water, have they reduced his freedom or increased his freedom, right? Are we ever just completely free, or from the moment we're born, are we bound, at least to a certain extent, by our physiological and psychological needs, which thereby limit our freedom and require an overarching system to meet those needs, thereby making us more free? Um, Rish the Fish. I don't read Harry Potter. I've never read a Harry Potter book. They were super popular when I was like, in 20 years ago, but I never really watched them. I never got into Harry Potter. So, there's interesting parallels between what I understand Harry Potter and Freemasonry. Certainly, this idea of like the school as like a kind of lodge and symbolism, the importance of symbolism, but I am way out of my head when it comes to Harry Potter. Please, however, hit like and subscribe. Um, well, again, freedom gets complicated, right? That's all I'm saying, because, there's freedom for things, freedom from things. I mean, again, you could argue the freest person in the world is a person where, in the middle of a desert where nobody can communicate with him, talk to him, you know, relate to him for miles and miles around. He's just alone in the desert. But very quickly, we will find that his physiological and physical needs limit his freedom. He is not free from hunger. He's not free from thirst. He's not free from sunstroke or whatever it might be. And in those cases, suddenly he might not be so concerned with a government showing up and setting up a society around him. Yes, it would limit his freedom in some ways. He can no longer, run around without any clothes on or just say whatever he wants or scream into the void. But now he has a civilization that can at least provide him with food, water, shelter. So, the freedom is a complicated question. I think, from my perspective, the goal should not be to maximize freedom. It should be to maximize responsibility, and it should be to maximize the relationships between different individuals. No worries, Smokey. I will see you soon. Thank you for being here. Not when you have a Declaration of Independence. Okay. But again, Declaration of Independence doesn't assure complete freedom. And people talk about this, right? Like if you're playing a game and I say your turn, if I don't specify the rules of the game or what is expected to happen, no one moves and nothing happens, right? Perfect freedom does not require zero rules or zero involvement. We're all kind of trying to maximize what the correct number is. Some may go less rules is better. Some may go more rules are better. But no one works off the basic assumption that it's zero. Well, labels can be very damaging, right? I learned that when I was a probation officer, right? When I was a probation officer, one of the things I always did and always tried to be careful about is I always tried to make sure that, I would call them my clients, not criminals. My clients are people on probation. Because you call somebody a criminal, they're more likely to act like a criminal. And they're more likely to create a division between you and the person you're supervising. Which, to a certain extent, you do need to have something of a division, obviously. Right, we're not friends. I'm a probation officer. He's on probation. But we also want to try not to come at it from a power dynamic either, or from a labeling dynamic. Tiny, not so sure you mean by that. Individualism in what sense? Deborah, yeah, well, when I was a probation officer, I always referred to them as clients as well. Sometimes you have people on probation. Is something else I might refer to people as, but kind of one or the other. Because again, labels can unfortunately create divisions, and you got to be really careful with that. Society does not do, society which is too divided. It's very hard to get things done. And you see that within Freemasonry, the fact that we all have one title, it's called brother. It can, yeah. I mean, but it can denote different things. You could also argue that being a probation officer, my clients were both the person on probation and the public. I had a responsibility and duty to them at the same time to make sure as much as possible that they were being treated safely, or that the general public was as safe as possible. If I had somebody who was a risk for recidivism, a risk to either an individual or a victim class or victim group, I do what I can to make sure I'm keeping that victim group as safe as possible, liaising with police, with whoever needs to be liaised with. Hello, not a gray, like not an alien. Welcome. Please hit like and subscribe. Shoals Daniel, welcome from Germany. Please hit like and subscribe. And Moon Boy, please hit like and subscribe. I would love to get onto the moon. I mean, I'm hoping with this new Artemis mission, maybe we'll get to a point where, I might live for another, let's say, 30 years. Maybe I'll get to see humanity return to the moon, and maybe even see um, um, a Masonic Lodge meeting through Tranquility Lodge take place on the moon. So the idea of the only nation to be formed by individualism, I mean, I would probably disagree with that. England, Canada, um, France, for better or worse, right? Like it didn't always work. And again, you got to be just really careful how you define these things. When recently for example, have been looking at being a living kidney donor. There's been a snafu which we're currently waiting to work out. I'm not sure if I'll still be doing it or not. It depends on a couple different factors. On the possible recipient side, we're going to see. But I mean, going through the living kidney donor process, there have been a lot of tests, a lot of testing done, and throughout that entire time, it's been completely free, no insurance, no nothing. Like, is that socialism? I've had to use doctors' offices many times, as has my mom and dad. It's been free of charge. Is that socialism? The fire department, police. People tend to define these things based on whatever preconceived notions they have. So they'll say socialism is bad, but social programs are good. But how many social programs do you need before it becomes socialism? Seems to be something no one can ever answer. I just think you look at general situations step by step, you figure out what works and what doesn't. So, the garbage collection seems to make sense to be a public service. Call it socialism, call it whatever you want. Car manufacturing, probably best to be more of a capitalist model. Ben, we did go to the moon. In fact, the second person to ever walk on the moon, Buzz Aldrin, was himself a Freemason, and I hope we get back there soon. I know I got a big forehead. I've grown to accept it. Hello, not a gray. Robert, I'm local 804. Oh, Teamsters Union? Hello, Strategy Master. Thank you for being here. Once again, please take a moment. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, let me know. Robert is local LA FNAM 444. Okay, I think we got a couple of Teamsters in here. Right now, I'm looking up my metrics on on YouTube Studio, particularly trying to figure out if the new metrics have gone into effect, which is something really interesting. I'm going to see how it's going to affect channels. I'm really curious how it's going to affect Masonic channels with the new metrics, the new way they're judging them. We can indeed get past the firmament. The firmament doesn't exist I mean, in theory, I think there might be an edge to the universe. I don't think the universe might be finite in space. Might be infinite. I think the universe might be finite in space, but infinite in time. Um, but nonetheless, we can definitely get to the moon. I don't know what those are, Morpheus. Chicken feet with mushrooms, chicken feet and grass. I've never tried chicken feet. It doesn't sound good. I mean, I don't know what it means to be based on individualism. I feel like pretty individual here in Canada and grateful for it. I've been to England, seemed pretty free, seemed pretty individual. I mean, you could argue England with like the Magna Carta, for example, is a pretty good example of a country. I forget when the Magna Carta was signed. I think it was like what, 12 something? Creating a very early on example of freedom of individuals, or at least equality amongst different groups of individuals. Um, Deborah, there's also Freemasonry on Jamaica. I've actually talked about that in the past. Don't know about that, Tiny. I definitely think it might have been infinite in terms of existence, like it's been around forever, eternal. In terms of its size, I don't know if we can say for sure it's infinite. We just know it's really, really big. At least really, really big on scales compared to um, what we're used to, if nothing else. Supposedly, they're really good for stocks. Like they add a lot of collagen, as well as pig's feet. But I don't know for sure. Um, are you American? I am not American. Um, Strategy, I mean, kind of. I think you need to be careful about that. I get what you're saying. And this isn't just for like Freemasonry, right? Like there's definitely an element. It's going well, King, that, these Masonic, sorry, like a regular live stream can feel like you're making friends and you're part of a group, and it can feel equivalent to meeting in a Masonic lodge or something to that effect. But I think you need to be really careful about that. Ultimately, I think I have to remember that online and social interaction is not the same thing and is different than actual physical face-to-face interaction. And I think we need to remember both are important, both matter, but we can't ignore the physical and the face-to-face. Hello, Chun Li. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. I visited the Philippines last year and loved it. Manila is wonderful. Very friendly people, very cool people. I'd love to get back there at some point if I could. It was beautiful. I am Canadian. Maybe my dad is coming out a little bit. Um, because my dad is British. He met a Canadian girl. The rest is history. But I am Canadian, born and raised in Winnipeg, currently live in Windsor. Thank you for being here, by the way. I guess the lesson from Deborah is be careful if you're eating chicken's feet. I never had them before, so I can't speak to, threats of choking, but I suppose with any food, just be careful. Um, Cray, so yes, Canadian. And Chunny Arts. First of all, I hope you're doing well. I hope you like and subscribe, and nothing but respect for the Philippines. Really beautiful place, really beautiful people, friendly people, kind people. Um, Hopefully I can get back there at some point. I love the food of the Philippines. I mean, I wasn't there for long enough to like try anything crazy or super fancy, but I went to a couple of different lodges where they gave me some really good food. Um, I love the Coca-Cola. That was really good. It was like the glass bottle type. That was really good. So, Chuni, please like and subscribe. And Deborah, yes, second man on the moon was a Freemason. There's been other Freemasons as well who've been on the moon, but Buzz Aldrin was. I forget the names of the other ones. Deborah, I don't know if you answered the question before. I may have missed it. Um, did you, what did you think of did you read my articles I wrote about um, the Freemasonry and respond to the calls to action in the Masonic, in the Murdered, Missing, and Indigenous Women's Report. And if not, can you check out my stories on Medium? Chuni, I would love to visit the Philippines again. Genuinely would love to. It'd be incredible. Um, really cool. Like I said, really cool people. I'd like to visit for longer as well. But I was there in June of last year for the Jose Rizal Memorial Day. Jose Rizal, famously a Freemason. I will put a link in the chat, Deborah. Just give me 1 second and let me know if you're able to find it. Because I'm trying to grow my Medium. Now, if you go to this chat description, you will find in the chat description a link to my Medium article. My Medium profile. And from there, you can go and, find the articles themselves. But I'm going to give you the specific stories. So there's Freemasonry, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, and calls to action. Let's see what we can do here. So Deborah, let me know if you can see that comment. If you see that, if you copy and paste that, you should be able to get to it, because links don't always work well. And let's see if I can get the other one. I don't know. I've actually asked that question a few times, Tiny Homestead. I would. So Medium, it's basically YouTube for writing. It allows you to write articles and then publish those articles. In the same way on YouTube, you can produce videos and publish the art, the videos on YouTube. Moon Boy, hello. Thank you for being here. Dun, dun, dun. I'm trying to find the other article that I wrote as well. Oh, here it is. Freemasonry and the National Inquiry into Missing, Murdered, and Indigenous Women. And the final reports calls for justice. I'm going to put the whole link in. Try to, Deborah, try to click on that link. See if it goes through, if you can see it. Let me put it here as well. I don't know who Frank is. I know a few different Franks. And I'm glad you get the notifications, Deborah. That means you have the notification bell turned on. One of the biggest pains in the butt right now is trying to get people to turn on their notification bell. It is cold. It is chilly. Believe me, you get used to cold weather here compared to the Philippines. But it's beautiful, in my opinion, the greatest country in the world, which I've said before. But I'm glad that you got notifications of when I'm online. I really appreciate it. Turn on that notification bell. It's very important. It helps people find me. I am Cameron, and I'm here to discuss, amongst other things, Freemasonry. And promote the ways Freemasonry was and is relevant to the communities which it's located. Does Canada have more English and French influences? I mean, it's tough to say, Lorna. I would say more English because more of the population speaks English, but French is without question a major influence in Canada and incredibly important. So I think, within Freemasonry, there's a lot of, I will say, um, English and French influence in Freemasonry, as well as Filipino, South American, Indigenous. I mean, who knows who is and isn't benevolent, right? Tiny house homestead. But I mean, it's going to be an interesting question. Right now, I think our biggest concern about AI needs to be that AI is the tool which more and more people are using to learn about Freemasonry. And whether that's a positive thing or not, who knows? Like, we've reached a point where 20 years ago, if you wanted to learn what Freemasonry was or what Freemasonry is, you would go to Google, type in what is Freemasonry, and then click on a link that Google provided you. It could be like a link to a Grand Lodge. Now, you go to Google, you type in what is Freemasonry, Gemini AI gives you a response, and you don't even need to click on a link, which is why it's more important than ever that we start focusing on what artificial intelligence is saying about us and how to respond to it. Which, by the way, um, I've written about also on Medium. So there you go. Hello, Qmart. AI. Hey, I'm Canadian. I say A all the time. Please hit like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. The western half of Canada speaks Canadian. Speaks English, in fact. I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's an Anglo-Saxon derivation. It evolved from, if I recall correctly, German and Latin, or at least there's a lot of German in English. Yeah, English is a West Germanic language that came from dialects brought to Britain in the 5th century by Germanic tribes. Though also there was a fair bit of, I think, Latin and also some of the Romance languages in there as well. Super, not yet, with my 5 cents that I found, 2.5 of which I guess belongs to the Masonic Medical Research Institute. But no, not yet. But I mean, part of doing this and being a content creator is you got to pay attention to your tax. You got to pay attention to your. You got to pay attention to your taxes, to your income, to your expenses. You're a business owner. You're a sole proprietor, and a big part of being that is paying attention to how you deal with your expenses, your budgets, everything that comes into that. So. What kind of people are enemies? Honestly, strategy. I'm not one who is that interested in, um, like, who are the quote unquote enemies of Freemasonry in terms of people or groups. People are going to just believe dumb things, and so be it. And all we can do is our best to push against that. What does concern me is, to me, the enemies of Freemasonry are economic factors that are at play, social factors that encourage more selfishness and less sacrifice for common good, as well as how ubiquitous Netflix and YouTube, I know I'm on YouTube, but how ubiquitous things like Netflix are, and how easy it is to stay home on your couch after a long day of work and all of the entertainment options you have available, as opposed to spending time going to your Masonic lodges. Ben, I've never feared for my life as being part of Freemasonry nor being online. Those rabbit holes are dumb. Um, so I think we in Freemasonry, again, it's this whole idea of we're vegetarians. We don't have beef with nobody, but we do struggle with day to day challenges as things get more expensive, right? Food is 30% more expensive in the last year. If you have to choose between paying for groceries, going to Masonic Lodge, or going to work to be able to pay for groceries by taking overtime, you're going to go to work, you know? Um, it does strategy. But all I can do is push back and focus on the positives of what Freemasonry does for the good, and not the negative, right? And then let people make their own decisions. That's really all you can do. I wish we could ban people from speaking nonsense on Freemasonry, but unfortunately, I don't think we can. Um, I mean, Shuni, I love Canada. I think it's the greatest country in the world, and we'd love to have you visit. But I'm not going to knock America. I mean, I have a lot of issues with the American government, without question. That concerns me quite a bit. But um, Americans themselves, I've got a lot of good friends who are American, a lot of good family members who are American. Um, some are, it's like anything, right? You can't judge people based on the government or the politics of the time. Um, Stephanie, you're not wrong. I think the internet is causing a lot of issues, which I don't know the best way to solve it because I don't think we can get rid of the internet. Like if I could, snap my fingers and suddenly no more internet, I probably would do it. But unfortunately, I can't do that, which means we have to find a way, both within Freemasonry and within our day-to-day lives, um, focus on um, just using the internet as best as we can in positive ways. Because really, I don't know what other options we have. Again, we're not going to be able to get rid of it. Whatever it is we may think or we may want to do. If I could find, shoot. Okay, well, I got to find this guy again. Give me 1 second. So, I did want to talk again. Yesterday was World Slavery Elimination Day, or a day celebrating, it's not been completely eliminated, but generally speaking, the, I guess, reduction or abolition in slavery. It's known as Slavery Remembrance Day. It was meant on August 23rd to commemorate the 1791 uprising in Saint Domingue, now Haiti, that accelerated the end of the transatlantic slave trade. Freemasons and Freemasonry has been involved in the abolition of slavery in a variety of different, with variety of different Masons and situations, but I want to talk about one in particular known as Victor Schoelcher. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm going to pull up the article I found about him and read that to you guys. I avoid internet rabbit holes. Here it is. I've never heard what the ABS test is, but I think it's valuable to probably have some type of testing. I try to think and try to test things based on a court of law. So if I was presenting, if I believe something and I had to defend it in a court of law, would I be able to, based on the standards within a court of law? That includes, is it hearsay or not hearsay? That includes, is the evidence upon which I'm relying verified by third parties? If I believe something based on a picture I've seen, do I know who took the picture, when the picture was taken? Do I have confirmation that the picture isn't AI or artificial intelligence? Those are little things that I try to think about. Could I handle cross-examination well? Is this something that is, confirming a pre-existing belief? In which case, I should probably be even um, more skeptical of it than otherwise. An internet rabbit hole strategy is, for example, I'm not sure if the moon landing existed or didn't exist. So I type into Google, did the moon landing exist? And one of the responses I get is from a website claiming it didn't. I click on that website. That website has a report and it has links to other sites. I click on those sites, and next thing you know, every single site I'm looking at is, an anti-moon landing conspiracy theory bullshit. And then on top of that, I type into Google or type into X, the moon landing didn't happen, curious to see what comes out. And now everything on my feed tells me tells me it didn't happen. And I have to deal with that. So unfortunately, there's a lot of Freemasons get involved in those as well, or Freemasonry finds itself, dealing with that nonsense, and you always kind of have to deal with it. See if I can find this quote. Okay, so let's talk about Victor Schoelcher and the abolition of slavery. This is an article I found which discusses his life, his Masonic career, and his views on slavery. Perhaps little known outside France, Victor Schoelcher was a Freemason who actively campaigned for the abolition of slavery. The abolition of slavery in France was a long story spanning 1315, 1794, and 1848, in which Victor Schoelcher played a crucial role. Um, Victor Schoelcher was born July 22nd, 1804 in Paris. His father, of Alsatian origin, was the owner of a porcelain factory. It was probably in 1822 that he was initiated into the Persian lodge of the Grand Orient of France, Les Amis de la Vérité. This lodge is said to have been one of the most progressive and republican in the first third of the 19th century. Around 1830, Schoelcher traveled to Cuba to represent the family business, where he was first confronted with the reality of slavery, which shocked him deeply. On his return to France, he became a journalist and pamphleteer, and after inheriting the family business in 1832, sold it to devote himself to writing and campaigning, not only for the abolition of slavery, but also other social and political issues, such as education and the abolition of the death penalty. In 1840 and 1841, Schoelcher returned to the West Indies, this time convinced that the abolition of slavery should be proclaimed immediately. He also traveled to several African countries and Greece, and his anti-slavery convictions were strengthened. From 1845 onwards, he wrote numerous articles arguing for the immediate abolition of slavery, in opposition to some who only called for its humanization. In 1847, he compiled various articles he had written on the subject into a work entitled, and I'm going to pronounce this terribly wrong, History. Actually, I'm going to get the English translation. I'm tired of doing like French translations and getting it wrong. History of slavery over the last 2 years. The political unrest that broke out in 1847 gave Schoelcher the opportunity to achieve his aims. The July monarchy, which had promised to be a liberal regime, became increasingly hardline as a result of the political instability that characterized it and numerous riots and uprisings that it had to deal with. Louis Philippe stubbornly refused to consider the universal suffrage demanded by the Republicans and became increasingly unpopular. In 1847, the government banned political meetings and attempted to ban army officers and non-commissioned officers from belonging to Freemasonry, which was still considered a troublemaker, but at least good trouble. From July 1847, Republicans began organizing banquets across France, modeled on the Republican banquets of the 1789 Revolution, to circumvent the ban on political meetings. Once again, the government tried to stop them, and it was the ban on the banquet due to be held in Paris on 19th February 1848 that really set things alight. Postponed to February 22nd, the banquet was later canceled by organizers, which seemed to vindicate the government. So again, you had Republican Freemasons arguing for the abolition of slavery. The government, as a consequence of this, tried to just ban slavery outright. The response being, we'll hold banquets instead. Sometimes you find the creative workarounds. But most Republican elements did not stop there. One of the organizers of the banquet, Armand Marsat, leader of the opposition, editor of the newspaper Le National, and member of the Grand Orient of France, incited the Parisian population to rise up. On 22nd of February, more than 3,000 people gathered to march on the Palais Bourbon, chanting anti-government slogans. On the 23rd of July, the army fired on the crowds, and on the 24th of July, the situation became untenable. Faced with a flood of rebels, the army withdrew from Paris, with the troops guarding the tourists hostile to him and his generals, seeing no way out. Louis Philippe abdicated on the 24th of February in favor of his grandson, before going into exile in England, but not before appointing his daughter-in-law, the Duchess d'Orleans, regent of the kingdom. But power was already in the hands of the Republicans who had taken over the Palais Bourbon, and although many moderate deputies were prepared to accept any regency, the Second Republic was proclaimed on the 24th of February 1848 by Adolphe Lamartine, a poet, academic, and politician with close ties to the Freemasons. Schoelcher was part of the provisional government set up around Lamartine as Secretary of State for the Navy and the Colonies. The government lasted from February to May of 1848. But this was enough time for Schoelcher, again a Freemason and abolitionist, to get the decree abolishing slavery passed on April 27, 1848. This was, in fact, the third time that France had abolished slavery. The first decree abolishing slavery in French territory had been signed by Louis X in 1315. Louis XIII reinstated it in the French West Indies. The French Revolution abolished slavery in 1794. Napoleon reintroduced it in the West Indies. The decree initiated by Schoelcher was to be definitive. After the provisional government had been replaced by an executive commission, Schoelcher was elected deputy for Martinique on August 9, 1848, and Guadeloupe on June 24, 1849. Lots of cool history of Freemasonry there as well. As a member of the Montaigne Party, which is on the extreme left of the political spectrum, in December of 1849, Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, the nephew of Napoleon I, was elected president of the French Republic for the first time, and Schoelcher was re-elected deputy for Guadeloupe as a deputy, and then from 1875 as senator to Martinique. He continued to fight for the causes close to his heart: the abolition of the death penalty, free and compulsory education for all, the situation of women and children. Victor's career was neither uninterrupted nor politically assiduous, and yet it seems that his understanding of Freemasonry was largely an inspiration for his commitments. Les Amis de la Vérité, the lodge into which he was initiated, was one of the most progressive in the Grand Orient of France, as we noted above. It was even one of the few lodges to take active part in the Three Glorious Years. In 1830, the Revolution, the overthrow of Charles X, and established Louis Philippe's constitutional monarchy known as the July Monarchy. This lodge, which was close to the various political secret societies active at the time, was dissolved in 1833. There is no further trace of Schoelcher's Masonic activity until 1844, when he joined La Clémente Amitié, one of the most republican lodges of the July Monarchy. However, he only stayed there for a few months. La Clémente Amitié, too openly challenging the conservative of the Grand Orient de France and calling for a reform of the order through the mouth and writings of its new worshipful master, Francois Timilion Bégu Clavel, experienced a serious crisis. It was first dissolved by the Grand Orient, but the sentence was later commuted to a 2-month suspension. However, 17 members of the lodge were expelled, including Schoelcher. He did not join another lodge until his exile in London in 1851. In London, he probably had contact with Les Philadelphus Lodge, but there is no evidence that he attended regularly. After his return from exile in 1870, although he kept in touch with like-minded Freemasons, he regularly attended lodges. He may have visited the lodge La Renaissance de Emile de Hiram in the 1870s, Hiram, and attended the initiation of Jules Ferry and Émile Littrot into La Clémentine Amitié in 1875. However, there is no record of this in the archives of the two lodges. Similarly, it is sometimes said that Schoelcher helped Maria de Erasmus be initiated in 1882 in a ceremony that gave rise to the mixed Freemasonry of Droit Humain. While it is true that Schoelcher knew Maria, whom he had met in feminist circles. There is no evidence that he played any role in her initiation. Victor's Schoelcher's Masonic career was therefore sporadic, but the ideals of humanity, liberty, equality, and fraternity that he discovered in the lodge remained with him throughout his life and guided his political commitments. And again, I bring this up because yesterday was Slavery Remembrance Day, and the truth is Freemasonry, to its credit, many Freemasons were themselves abolitionists, including Victor Schoelcher, who advocated for and eventually was successful in having slavery officially for the third and final time banned in France. And there's no question, as is noted in this article, the ideals of humanity, liberty, equality, and fraternity that he discovered in the lodge remained with him throughout his life and guided his political commitments. Freemasonry is not political, but does not mean that the Masonic ideals found do not encourage certain political ideas, including, in my opinion, the abolition of slavery. And in fact, you also see that with Prince Hall Freemasonry, which was active not only in the abolition of slavery, but also within the promotion of civil rights movements for Black men. How did I develop my skills of discernment? I mean, I think you develop your skills of discernment. Ultimately, it has to derive from your observation and your ability to observe things in a rational manner, right? I think that's something Freemasonry teaches as well. But, do I know for sure that there are no invisible leprechauns in my apartment? I do not. But my discernment and my intelligence tells me there most likely is not. And research doesn't hurt. When you say what is so special about Freemasonry, I mean, I don't know if Freemasonry is special. It's special to me because I love it. But other people may have other things they like that's special. But for a lot of reasons, I think primarily because it had such a solid foundation and a beneficial foundation to humanity, it welcomed a lot of people into it and was very popular. And the more popular something becomes, the greater amount of backlash there can be as a result of it. Deborah, don't believe everything you read is a very valid point. Very adequate point, is very good point as well. No one's behind me, Critter, but good try. Twisted, welcome. Any questions? Thank you for being here. I mean, I'm not saying the French Revolution was good or bad. People can decide it for themselves. There were good parts about it and bad parts about it. I think ultimately when it comes to revolutions, the most successful one ever has to be America. But I do think its focus on equality and liberal values like the abolition of slavery is a good thing. Holy balls, please like and subscribe. Free Palestine is a political statement. Some will agree with it, some will disagree with it. But yeah, going back again to what I said before, on the day of the world abolition, or on Slavery Remembrance Day, I think it's worth celebrating Masons like Victor Schoelcher and his work in the abolition of slavery. I don't know what Socratic socialism sucks too. I know what the Socratic method is. I'm not quite sure what Socratic socialism is. I do like Socrates or Plato. Right? Plato came. Which one came first again? If I recall correctly, Socrates was first, Plato was second. Plato was basically the recorder of Socrates. Yes, Plato was the student of Socrates. I've never heard of that one before. Let me check it out, Robert Heaton. I'm wondering if that's more in an American context. The Bureau of Freed Men and Abandoned Lands. The Freedom Bureau was a U.S. government agency established on March 3rd, 1865, to help formerly enslaved people and poor refugees transition to freedom and self-sufficiency during the Reconstruction era. I'm going to look into that. Were there a lot of Masons who were part of the Freedom Bureau, Robert Heaton? Because I'd be really interested in learning more about that. I mean, first, I need more snacks. Well, Prince Hall, I knew about that, Robert Heaton, but the Freedom Bureau is not something I knew much about. Interesting. I go search the catalogs for records on the Freedmen's Bureau. Interesting. So, when I type in Freemason, actually, no, this is not right. Hold on one second. Search the catalog. I like to search the Freedmen's Bureau records. Freedmen's Bureau and Freemasonry. I mean, I don't think it hurt anybody's interest. I may have perceived it as hurting people's interests. Part of it is, if something's very popular, everybody views it as like a threat if they can't be part of it, right? Or they don't want to be part of it. So if you're part of a church and your membership is going down, but like Masonic attendance going up, you're going to view that as hurting your interest, even though you shouldn't. Interesting. All free men and brethren. Essays on the history. Oops, that's gone though. I'm going to look more into this Freedman's Land because this is really interesting. It's just not something I know much about. If we go to My Freemasonry, let's try this one. Alan Winter, Robert Heaton. Let me see if I can find some stuff about it, and maybe do a discussion on it on a later stream. I'm having trouble searching the bureaus for it. I'm going to microfilming and records. But then I got to figure out how to search it. As soon as I can find something, I promise I'll let you guys know. But it's interesting. I have no thoughts on LeBron going to Philadelphia. I would rather gain subscribers, so please hit like and please hit subscribe. Well, not just religious organizations, but I mean any group, right? Like if you're a civic institution and you're growing, there are certain people who will always have kind of, maybe more suspicious views. Maybe they just don't trust groups in general, especially if the group is private, and they'll automatically assume negative things about it. On top of that, if you start to see one group doing really well and you're struggling, maybe, especially if you're in the religious context, even though being a Freemason will in no way stop you from going to church or being involved in church. But if, you see, like one thing I noticed in reading Humanum Genus is it sounded like the Pope Pope Leo the 13th, I think it was blaming Freemasonry for a reduction in attendance at church, even though I don't know of any churches that have meetings on Sunday mornings, nor would any lodge probably schedule them that way because they want to make sure they give a chance for their brethren to show up and to make it. I mean, I don't know a ton about Hinduism, Athar, but I really like and appreciate the Hinduism I've learned about. Visiting Hindu Masonic lodges was incredible. And, sorry, not, no, excuse me, visiting a Hindu temple was incredible. And meeting with my Hindu brethren who are Freemasons, that was really cool as well. Like, I've known a couple Hindu Freemasons. So, there is no like Hindu Masonic lodge to my knowledge, though maybe in India there may be lodges that are majority Hindu. Um, but I mean, as a way of life, I can't really speak to it because I don't know what it would mean to have a Hindu way of life precisely. But the Hindu brethren I've met, the Hindu friends I've made, have been super cool, friendly, kind, and it certainly seems like it's possible to have a very good way of life or a good quality of life and to be Hindu. So I guess if it works for you and if it helps you find peace and live a good life, then nothing but respect. Minotaur. After labor and harmony, a member passes out from drinking. I mean, it depends on how regularly that happens. Honestly, if it happened once, I wouldn't bring it up to anybody. I might, pass on, a word of wise counsel to the brother. Um, but if it happens once and not again, I probably wouldn't bring it up to anybody else. I don't think it's helpful at that point. And, these things happen. They've happened many places around the world in Masonic buildings. Well, I mean, Ben, it's tough because I'm not an expert on Hindu faith. I when I visited the Hindu temple at Glenview, just having a special celebration, some of the things I learned about particularly, and let me get the name of it correctly. It was a temple to Hanuman. Um, he is known for, amongst other things, his incredible strength. He's actually respected or worshipped by, amateur wrestlers or Greco-Roman wrestlers, as well as MMA fighters in India, and they often bring him bananas as a tribute. The Hindu faith does believe in reincarnation. The way that it was explained to me was that the Hindu faith, yes, they have multiple beings and multiple entities which they show worship towards, but it's all in service of one God, which has, in the same way, like the way it was described to me, is, the Christian faith, they have a single God represented by a Trinity. And then beyond that, they have several important figures like angels, Mary, saints. And the Hindu faith is similar in that they have a singular kind of God, but it's represented through a variety of different creatures and entities. And I was told if you were a Hindu and you were most likely to join a lodge, a Masonic lodge, you would most likely use the Bhagavad Gita as your volume of the sacred law. I do not believe in reincarnation. Jasmine. Skywalk, welcome. Legion, I do not know who Eris is, but please like and subscribe. Armando, welcome back. Jake, welcome. Yes, Athrav, he is, which is why, again, he's respected or worshipped by professional wrestlers and MMA fighters in India. And they bring him gifts of bananas. I do not know about the egg theory. It just doesn't seem very likely to me scientifically. Um, I mean, type of stuff. It's if it's already happened, it's already happened. Then there's really not much you can do except ride it out. There's always going to be something. There's always going to be a pain in the ass. There's always going to be brothers fighting. It just is what it is. You have to kind of ride it out. They'll have a vote, I guess, and brothers may leave, and if they do, they'll start a new lodge or they'll go to a different one. And 20 years from now, no one's going to care about this stuff. 20 months from now, no one's going to care about this situation. So to be a Freemason, you must believe in a supreme being, Jasmine. However, every Mason is welcome to believe his own version or whatever he thinks of the supreme being. For me, the supreme being is the rational nature of the universe as expressed through science and geometry. Please hit like and please hit subscribe. Whenever there's a god of chaos, obviously I would think it could be very dangerous to pray to them, because you're praying for them to bring you chaos. I suppose a little bit of chaos sometimes, though, can help keep us on our toes, metaphorically speaking. No, Freemasonry has always welcomed religious ideas, or different religions. It goes back to the Anderson constitutions, and that was in 1723. Even before then, it goes back to our stonemason roots, right? When we were stonemasons, it made no sense to, not welcome different stonemasons based on their religious beliefs. It made far more sense to just, whatever you might believe, whatever you are, so long as you can work with stone, we'll welcome you. So long as you can be a good brother, we'll work with you. So Jake, great architect is a Masonic term we use for supreme being, but it's a placeholder, meaning, need more food. What it means is, so when a Muslim Mason says great architect, he may be thinking of Allah. When a Christian Freemason speaks of the great architect, he may be thinking of Jesus. When I think of the great architect, I think of the rational nature of the universe, right? That is kind of the nature of, that's why we use great architect. Tyler, then you're more skilled than I am. Arthur, there's some truth to that. No, Freemasons used to do stonework. Freemasonry evolved from stonemasonry. Freemasonry is a continuation of stonemasonry in a social setting. We use metaphors related to stonemasonry, but we're not actual stonemasons. Some of us might be. Jasmine, if you're asking me what the Christian God believes, I'm the worst person to ask about that. Well, you need to talk to, a priest, right? I can't speak to what, quote unquote, the Christian God believes. What I can say is I believe that regardless of your faith, you can be a good brother, a good friend, a good neighbor, and a good Mason. Oh yeah. The Abrahamic faith is certainly the Abrahamic faith, there is what kind of one that follows the other. No worries, man. Try to just ride it out. There's always going to be pains in the ass in Freemasonry. This idea that because the ideals of it are good and because it does good, it's an easy ride. If you join and you decide, I'm going to go once a year to a banquet and then not think about it, it's the easiest thing in the world. But if you actually want to be active and involved and dedicated, sometimes brothers are going to fight. Sometimes brothers are not going to get along. It just kind of is what it is. I would not agree with that, Minotaur. call it the Islam or the Muslim faith. I mean, I know enough people who view it as a religion and treat it in a religion. It has a religious text. Uh, I would definitely call it a religion or a faith. Jasmine, I have no idea. Again, Freemasonry is not a religion. It makes no statements as to whether there is a heaven or hell. Your priest, your rabbi, your imam, your spiritual leader will answer those questions for you. I cannot. I can say I have no idea. All I know for sure is I will die. And Freemasonry does remind us that we will die. And in doing so, reminds us to be grateful to be here on earth and to try to use our time here on earth to create a better world. We only have so much time here, so let's be grateful for it. Tyler, nothing but respect to you for that, by the way. I mean, I cannot build anything. I cannot work with anything. I would break every stone, every piece of steel. So if you have those journeyman trades, nothing but respect to you. Tyler, I definitely don't agree with that. Our tiny homestead. I mean, they're religions. Now, you can believe they're all fictional if you want. Others do not. I think when it comes to religion, the idea of fiction versus reality gets a little bit complicated. Right? I think for us, or for me, the way I view it is so long as you are willing to act in such a way that, you use those ideals within, be it Judaism, Christianity, or the Islamic faith, to better the world around you or your community, then it's real enough, right? Yes. I mean, strategy, yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Stonemasons still make big buildings, but it's an expansion. I've said before, it's a continuation of stonemasonry in a social setting. Clayton, I got skills. Don't even worry about it. You're better than I am, Tyler. I can't weld to save my life. Still, I mean, I'm pretty mobile off the chair, Brianna, so I'm usually able to get around where I need to go. But that does kind of bring up a really good point, right? Which is, I talked about this a lot in the past. We within Freemasonry need to make sure our buildings are accessible. So for example, if I am going to be, if I'm going to be traveling, so if I'm going to be going to a Masonic Lodge meeting, yeah, it matters to me if they have accessible washrooms. It matters to me if they have an elevator. It matters to me if they have accessible doorways. If you're, hard of seeing, like you have poor vision, I want to be able to, see well. If I'm blind, I want to make sure there's braille. Like, you want to be thinking about your abilities of your brethren to make it to the Masonic meeting and make it accessible. As it should, strategy, right? As it should. I think it has been unfortunate that over time we have not, unfortunately, allowed our, I think it's a good thing. Like somebody in a wheelchair, I'm grateful to have been born in 1983, because 100 years ago, people were not thinking about accessibility the way they were now, and that includes somewhat within Freemasonry. Things changed. I mean, there's lots of different goals, right? But without a doubt, instantaneous knowledge is one of them. But as Albert Pike would say, to bring him up, when it comes to this idea of knowing, like knowledge and wisdom, right? Albert Pike would point out, it's not simply enough to know things, right? Wisdom for its knowledge for its own sake can be blinding if you're not careful. The knowledge can be so much and so great it can blind you. You need to be wise as well in how you proceed. Albert was probably Luciferian. I mean, it depends how you define Luciferianism. I think you can be Luciferian in your philosophy, but Christian in your religion. How does it go in Styx? It's probably good to know both, right? My suspicion, Tyler, is you probably want to know both, because the old ways were formed for a reason, right? Who's to say there is an end goal? Right? I mean, Freemasonry is playing an infinite game, right? Meaning, like, what is the end goal of the United States of America? Like, so if you're playing chess, there's an end goal to win. If you're playing football, there's an end goal to win the game. But within that context of moment by moment, there's an infinite game being played. So, like, how do I put this so it makes sense? You're talking about end goals. Dab? Maybe you can. I think it depends how you define Luciferianism. So let's imagine you have two football teams playing, and one of them comes along and says to a team that's playing football, if you win this game, football will cease to exist. Like, I'm going to make it up, so if you win this game, football will cease to exist, no one will ever play again, right? The NFL will fold, whatever. They're probably going to throw the game, and they're probably going to lose on purpose, because yes, the goal of any particular game is to win. Ultimately, what matters more is that football as a concept continues, that the league continues, because just winning one game isn't as important as playing 50 games. Even if they lose all 50 games, at least, from a financial perspective, they're going to get paid more. From a community perspective, the community benefits from having 50 games played and tickets sold and people coming in. Like, the individual games, there's an end goal, but ultimately, the goal of football is just to continue existing in one form or another, right? The goal of Freemasonry, like individual meetings, the goal may be to give somebody a first degree, a second degree, a third degree, hold an installation. Maybe there's an important business or administrative topic like raising or lowering dues. But the ultimate end goal of Freemasonry is to just continue Freemasonry. There is no end goal, because Freemasonry, we hope, will never end. Um, in the same way, we may hope an individual football game ends, but we don't want football to end. Well, remaining occupied in something positive, strategy mastery, right? I mean, we can all find ways to keep ourselves occupied, but I think the danger is, are we occupied in something positive versus negative? It's about occupying ourselves in a positive way. Or another way to look at it might be, it's about fulfilling the human desire to spend time with other people. Um, sure, fishing and hunting absolutely counts. But again, Tyler, the end goal of fishing and hunting is to just keep fishing and hunting. Like, for example, if you were to be told, um, if you have a successful hunt and let's say catch, I don't know, the prize elk, you'll never be allowed to hunt again. You probably would choose in that moment not to catch the giant elk because what's more important is you get to hunt again tomorrow and the next day and the next day. That's why, for example, we don't let people just hunt to their heart's content and take as much, kills as they want whenever they want. You limit hunting to seasons. You license people. You limit how much people are allowed to hunt and take with them because, again, the goal is not a successful hunt. The goal is years and years of hunting. Sometimes successfully, sometimes not successfully, but still going. And not just for you, but presumably for your kids and grandkids and great-grandkids. So ultimately, Freemasonry, what do you mean by existential problems? I mean, Freemasonry is facing its problems, sure, without question. I don't know what you mean by like existential problems. It's just kind of is what it is. We're all struggling with trying to survive as civic institutions are reducing in membership and numbers across the board. I don't know much about the P2 Lodge, other than it's not recognized. I think it's supposed to have ties to the mafia, right? I mean, it shows a group of people who don't understand Freemasonry and used it, I believe, for ill-considered gains. And, there's a reason why they're not recognized by us and why I would not visit their lodge. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it, Tyler. And again, food safety is a Masonic consideration I've talked about in the past. That we need to make sure we are preserving and protecting our food as much as we possibly can. I mean, I think Freemasonry can provide excellent ethics by which to live one's life, without a doubt. And I'm grateful for the ethics that Freemasonry engages with or provides to us. We would need it, but yeah, I mean, certainly, I'm grateful that we as humans do seem to have a good immunity, but we don't want to take it for granted, right? We don't want to, by any means, take it for granted or assume because we've always had immunity, we'll always be good. There have fortunately been a lot of people who have died from food-related and food-borne illnesses. So, I love baked beans. Baked beans are incredible. I mean, I've cooked baked beans before for different Masonic events. I used to have a pretty decent baked bean recipe. Um, well, I mean, not me personally, CM, but there have been issues. Like, there was recently a lodge in Arizona, I think it was, where people snuck a phone into it and recorded a third degree. So, yeah, unfortunately, these things happen. And I think it's only going to get worse and worse. But I mean, the privacy issues, it's not the most concerning thing for me. At the end of the day, people are going to believe what they're going to believe, right? I don't worry about privacy one way or another a lot. I maintain the privacy for reasons I've discussed of our rituals and ceremonies. But ultimately, I just think Freemasons need to be more engaged and active in our communities. And if we can do that, like that's good enough, and we'll probably be okay. Well, it's to keep existing, of course. But again, Strategy Master, that's at the most basic level, that's the end goal of everything. What is the end goal of the United States of America? What is, to keep on having United States of America? What is the end goal of the NFL? It's not to play football, it's to play football today and tomorrow and next week and next year. What is the end goal of a business? It's to keep the business going. What is the end goal of a club? To keep the club going, right? Everything we do in that ultimately, in my opinion, should be focused on that one question. Is this thing that we are doing going to be helpful or harmful to Freemasonry in the long term? Um, Again, same thing with football. If you're on a football team and you're told if you win this game, football will cease to exist as a sport and no one will ever be able to play it again for some reason, you would lose the game. Because winning a single game isn't the overarching purpose. The overarching purpose and end goal is to keep playing football. Studio, please hit like and subscribe. Dan, I hope not. As someone who's next to Freemasonry, sorry, as someone who's next to America, I would like it to not collapse because I don't think that'll be good for anybody, certainly not its neighbors. But I guess we'll see what's going to happen. I don't think anybody knows for sure. What matters is, to the extent that we can stop stop America from collapsing, civic institutions are going to need to be a major part of that. Civic institutions, including Freemasonry. And as places go through positive and negative, through positive and negative cycles, I think during the negative, especially civic institutions, including Freemasons, can absolutely, or Freemasonry can absolutely help soften the landing and help protect people who may be struggling during the collapse. Um, so Freemasonry is not an American organization and it's not backed by America. I mean, Freemasonry has been a very important part of America since its founding, but it's also been a very important part of England, of Canada, of the Philippines, of many South American countries, North American country, like Mexico. So it's not uniquely American, nor is it backed by America. It simply exists all around the world in different jurisdictions and different organizations. Well, Freemasonry is falling apart in some places, but it hasn't fell apart yet, and I'm trying to do my best to make sure it doesn't. So CM, there are two ways to create bonds between people: shared knowledge and shared experiences. For example, if your family has a family recipe, that is a shared piece of knowledge that is just between you and your other family members, and having that allows a bond in the family, not just with the members that are currently present, but with past and future members. Our family recipe is our Masonic rituals and ceremonies, and maintaining their privacy helps us maintain the same bonds. Tyler, it does feel like everything is falling apart. I don't disagree with that feeling, and I don't know for sure if we can solve it, but if we can, it's going to be on the backs of civic institutions and civic groups like Freemasonry. I mean, everything is Masonic to me because I'm a Freemason and I view everything within that lens. But if you're somebody who loves football, you may view everything in the lens of football. If you're a comedian, you may view everything in the means of like whatever it might be, right? Like, it's called blue car syndrome or frequency bias. Whatever you're thinking about, you see more. I mean, tiny homestead, that's an interesting idea. I don't really get it. Like, Freemasonry is slowly dying, you know, grow fast or die slow, is slowly dying because the principles, like, I don't think its principles box it in. I don't really know what you mean by that. Brotherly love, relief, and truth are pretty universally decent principles. I mean, the extent to which it's slowly dying, there's a lot of different debates and reasons people can have. Certainly, almost nothing in society, with one very important exception, has changed in a way that supports civic engagement. The ubiquity of televisions and smartphones, right? Why do people go out when they have entertainment at home? Why do you need to see your brother in person when you can just see him over the phone? Um, and that really struggles, as well as several pretty challenging economic changes, the increase in inflation, um, people feeling more economically insecure, earning power, not keeping up with productivity, the great decoupling. I mean, and honestly, laziness and bad decisions amongst Masons who have put themselves ahead of the craft and focused more on themselves and their own well being than that of the craft. Um, Dan, I don't necessarily disagree with you on that one. I mean, that's a political statement. We don't discuss politics or religion in lodge, but I could, accept the argument and agree that I think is probably and I think it's probably made more sense to keep American troops in Afghanistan, but that's my personal opinion. Some will agree, some will disagree. Yes, as Robert says, I mean, I always describe it as Freemasonry is decentralized, right? There is no single governing body that controls Freemasonry in a global sense. Every Masonic lodge is under a unique jurisdiction, and that jurisdiction, it doesn't answer to anybody outside of it. George Washington calls all the shots. George Washington was a very important Freemason and a very important historical figure, obviously, but he did not call all the shots, even at the time he was alive in Freemasonry. That's not how it works. We're going to give this another 5 minutes. I'll be ending this stream, but I'll be back on tonight at 1 a.m. And don't forget to find me tomorrow, um, or tonight, excuse me, at 8 p.m. when I'm going to be streaming from my personal YouTube channel. We're going to try to finally grow that one significantly. Um, I don't think so, Tyler. I think there's a lot of benefits to the decentralized nature of Freemasonry. It allows people to experiment with different ideas without kind of chaining the whole of the organization to those ideas. So, for example, if you try something in Texas and it doesn't work, that's okay. You can try again in Louisiana with a slightly different system. It also means that if there is a really negative thing happening in a particular um, in a particular jurisdiction, it's not going to travel through the whole. And it keeps Freemasonry from being compromised, right? People always say, like, Freemasonry has been compromised, whatever nonsense. I always point out it's impossible for Freemasonry to be compromised because there is no single governing body that, that you could compromise. Individual Freemasons can be compromised, but that's not the same thing as saying Freemasonry can be compromised. And so I think there's a lot of benefits. Yes, Tyler, you have to believe in a higher power to be a Freemason, usually referred to as a supreme being. There are exceptions. There are what are called liberal orders, where you don't, but that's primarily located in France, although it also exists in the Philippines. Yeah, I'm not sure that would have been a smart call, Dan. I don't think that's the smartest approach to take. All right, shorter stream today, but that's okay. Still recovering from the very fun Saturday. I'm going to be posting some stuff on social media, so be prepared for that. And I will see everybody again tonight, 8 p.m. on my personal channel, then 1 a.m. And don't forget, as I've talked about before, we are, growing this channel. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let me know how you guys are doing, and let's start raising some funds. Maybe I'll go do a review of Nero's Steakhouse. And don't forget about all of the Freemasons, but most particularly the ones mentioned today, who were so important and vital in the abolition of slavery and the slave trade, at least the transatlantic slave trade. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll see you all very soon.